Welcome to Saints on Cinema. I am Tim Wilde.
And I'm Josh Edlow.
And welcome to our debut episode. We are two members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we are big lovers of movies, as are many Mormons, and we just like to talk about them and bring some of that conversation to you. But today's episode, we are going to talk about our top 7 underrated comedies. And why we're doing the top 7 instead of a top 10 or a top 5 is pretty much because a top 5 list is too hard to figure out. It's too tight to eliminate some of those movies. And a top 10 is just too common. And scripturally and in Hebrew, the number 7 represents completion and perfection and totality. So we're going with the top 7 list because it's perfect for us. So before we do that, we had already announced this topic on Facebook, and we tried to get a poll of some other suggestions from other people, and we wanted to go through a couple of their ideas of what they thought were some underrated comedies. And some of those suggestions we agree with, and some of them we don't. We're going to point that out a little bit. A very popular one right off the bat was Better Off Dead. Are you saying it, Josh? You haven't, have you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have not seen it, and so and I indicated that, and I got immediately rebuked. So that will be that will be one that I need to make restitution of and see Better Off Dead. I can't imagine it being so amazing it's going to make it on my top 7 list, but there you go. What did you think of it, Josh?
I thought it was a good movie. The thing is, though, is I fear that now, based on the recommendations that you've had, your expectations are way too high. I mean, I thought it was a good movie. It's not on my top 7 list because a lot of people swore it was great, and I watched it, and I was kind of had that built up that it was going to be this great movie, and then I was a little let down when I saw it. But again, I had expectations going in. If you have no expectations, it's a great movie.
Previously, I had no expectations going into it. Now I'm totally mixed and confused, so I don't know. I'm just going to give it my best shot. We'll see how it comes out. A couple other good ones that came on the list were Young Frankenstein, Weekend at Bernie's. My brother suggested that one. Both of those, as well as Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Those are all really great comedies, and they would be on the list, but I don't think those are underrated. I think people that are familiar and were, I guess, kind of this an era kind of thing. I don't think a lot of people who watch those movies, they still love those movies. I think that's the reason they wouldn't be on the list, because there's a difference between underrated comedies and forgotten comedies. I think underrated means they're not appreciated, versus forgotten just means it's not something that comes up on Netflix very often, or something that you pull out of your DVD shelf very often.
I think that some of those movies may be considered underrated, but this is the most underrated, right? So, like, I think they could be underrated, sure. Maybe not given their due, but compared to some of the other ones on my list, I don't think they're as underrated as others, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the thing. These are movies that I thought of are ones that are way buried in people's minds, that some people may have not have even heard of these movies on my list, and some of them that people have completely forgotten about. Everyone knows Bill and Ted. Everyone knows Weekend at Bernie's. Tommy Boy was another big one. A friend of mine, Matt Piper, mentioned Dumb and Dumber. I don't think any of those have been forgotten or underappreciated. I just think those are just ones that just don't come up very often. I think everyone still loves those movies. What do you think of Dumb and Dumber?
I thought Dumb and Dumber was actually, I would say it's not underrated in any way. I almost think, and people might not like this, but I think it might be a little overrated.
Really?
It's really funny, stands the test of time. I think the scenes that everyone remembers are hilarious scenes, laugh out loud. You could watch them over and over, and they're always going to be funny. But I don't even think that's Jim Carrey's best movie. Definitely not underrated.
2 other videos that were selected were Mr. Bean and Rat Race by Chris Livingston. I think those are hilarious movies, and I love Rowan Atkinson. I think he's one of the most underappreciated or underrated comedians. It's a shame he doesn't do more work. I love the Johnny English series. I think he's hysterical, and he's so animated. So such a very unique actor. I don't think those are underrated, though. And the thing is with Mr. Bean, I love the series. The movies never really worked for me. I mean, I don't think the plots or anything were were. It's not you need a deep plot for Mr. Bean, but I don't think they demonstrated Mr. Bean's best moments. I think they were just kind of chopped up parts of the show that were hilarious gimmicks in the show that were put to a very boring narrative. I don't think it really worked.
I would agree with that. Mr. Bean, the show, is highly underrated. But the first movie that came out was basically his best hits from his series put into a movie. So I wouldn't say that was underrated. The show itself, though, definitely underrated, but not the movie.
So I Married an Axe Murderer, also by Chris Livingston. I love that movie. I think that's one that has become forgotten because, you know, Mike Myers is not as popular anymore. I mean, his last couple movies were not very big hits, but it's funny. I think I like him. I like that movie better than Austin Powers, but whatever. Galaxy Quest and Mystery Men were two that we've thought of. Peter Brazier mentioned Galaxy Quest. I love Galaxy Quest. I think it's one of the funniest parodies of Star Trek, and you have to be familiar enough with Star Trek to really get how, or the depths of some of the jokes. Not to understand the humor. You can watch it because it's still Tim Allen. It's still funny, but I think for someone to really enjoy it, they have to be a little familiar with Star Trek. Mystery Men, kind of the same thing. Mystery Men is a hilarious parody of superheroes, especially I think Batman. It's got moments, but it's not, you know, beginning to end laughter for me at all.
Yeah. So I would also put it, going back to Chris Livingston's post on So I Married an Axe Murderer, he actually hit one of my top 7 on with comment. I think So I Married an Axe Murderer is so underrated and underappreciated because it's not Mike Myers as we know him now through Austin Powers and Shrek and even Wayne's World, his earlier stuff. You know, that's one of the only movies I can recall where he's just playing a normal guy. And that's really the birth of hearing Shrek and Fat Bastard from the Austin Power movies comes from So I Married an Axe Murderer. And also the comedy in that is so subtle a lot of the times that it's just, it's easy to miss, but it's such a great movie. It's a classic. I saw that movie in the drive-in randomly. So I went to that saying, oh, I don't know what this is. It's probably going to be stupid. And it ended up being great. So that's actually on my list of top 7.
Okay. So there's one giveaway already. All right, let's go ahead and let's dive into our top 7s. I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to do my top. We'll do the first 4, both of us, and then we'll both give our top 3.
You mean 7 through 4, right?
Yes, 7 through 4. So my number 7 was The Frisco Kid, and that's an old comedy. Have you seen that before?
I've never seen it, but I have heard of it.
It's phenomenal, and it has Gene Wilder, very young Gene Wilder, and Harrison Ford. And I think it was after A New Hope, before Empire Strikes Back. I can't exactly remember, but it was around that time, and he was just hysterical. And Gene Wilder plays a rabbi who is betrothed to marry a girl, but he's going through all these issues, been kind of overwhelmed with the world in the Wild West, trying to get to San Francisco. And well, Harrison Ford basically plays a cowboy version of a cross between Indiana Jones and Han Solo, but he's it's just hilarious because he's a full-on outlaw. He's an outlaw, and he's a gunfighter, and he's trying to get Gene Wilder to his betrothal in San Francisco, and he's trying to deal with how religious and how ignorant and naive Gene Wilder's character is. It's just hilarious. It's totally worth watching if you ever see it. My number 6, I have one rated R movie, Hear No Evil, See No Evil.
You got 2 Gene Wilders on there.
I do. Hear No Evil, See No Evil. Yeah, Gene Wilder and Richard Pryor. Gene Wilder plays a deaf man. Richard Pryor plays a blind man, and they get wrapped into this big, huge. It's a smuggling situation where they get falsely arrested for murder, and they have to escape the police and basically solve the crime and prove their innocence. It's hilarious watching them interact with each other and respond to each other, and the believability of their being impaired is just it's perfect. It's a flawless scene. But some of the funniest lines, a lot of vulgarity. It's Richard Pryor in his R version, and Gene Wilder responding to that. He has a few lines too, but it's hard to say it's worth watching because of the vulgarity, and there's a couple of very, very brief nude shots, but it's hilarious. It's a really good movie. Anyway, number 5 for me was Disorganized Crime. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's a movie with Ed O'Neill, and it's one of Lou Diamond Phillips.
There's no way that movie's good. Just...
You have to watch it. I was
okay, sorry.
you'd have to give it a try, but Disorganized Crime. Ed O'Neill has a partner, and they're from New Jersey, and they arrest one of the main characters who's trying to organize a big bank robbery out in Montana, this podunk teeny little town. And he gets arrested the night he sends invitations to call on 4 other criminals to come help him with the robbery. They're trying to figure out why they were there and trying to go through this robbery, and they follow through with it. They're all different experts, and it's just hilarious because of the different characters, their interaction and everything. I can't describe it, but it sounds hokey. It sounds ridiculous. It's fantastic. I promise. Number 4 for me, Zorro the Gay Blade. Tell me you've seen that.
No. Did you say Zorro the Gay Blade?
Zorro the Gay Blade. It's starring George Hamilton. It's a parody of Zorro, but kind of not. It's hilarious. Basically, George Hamilton plays the son of the previous Zorro, and that's Diego de la Vega. He is given the charge of taking over the family legacy of becoming Zorro, and he injures himself, and then he has to give the job to his twin brother, who's a homosexual who's their father sent him off to be a sailor to make a man out of him. And so he comes back, and because the straight brother, who's this total romantic, he injured himself, so he has to give the sword over to his brother to continue the legacy. But it's hilarious, and it's one of my family's classic movies that we watched all the time when I was growing up, and it's a great movie.
I'm absolutely going to see that movie.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I had to change rooms, and the reason I had to change is because we're having technical difficulties with my Wi-Fi, but I think we've got it figured out. I found it very hard to get down to 7 because I found so many comedies to be underrated, but this is what I could come up with. Hopefully everybody, whatever, you can agree or not, I don't care. It's my list. So, number 7, The Ringer, starring Johnny Knoxville and Katherine Heigl. Have you seen this movie?
I have not seen that movie because I'm not a big Johnny Knoxville fan, but go ahead.
So normally neither am I. This is a movie where Johnny Knoxville plays a guy who decides with his uncle that they are going to fix the Special Olympics by him pretending to be mentally handicapped and joining. And it is probably one of the funniest things you'll ever see. Completely probably politically incorrect, but has a great message at the end. And so I would highly recommend that movie.
I was just about to say, that sounds totally tasteless. Is this not an appropriate movie to watch?
Let's hear the rest of my list before you determine if this is the most
right.
My list. Okay, so that's number 7. All right. Number 6, Major League 2. Okay. Now the reason I picked Major League 2 was because I actually think in some ways I like it better than the original Major League. So this has Omar Epps playing Willie Mays Hayes in lieu of Wesley Snipes, who's in the first one, Charlie Sheen, Bob Uecker, and a host of others. And it's a great movie about baseball. Basically a baseball team that just is a bunch of nobodies who suck in the first movie, who end up going to the winning the pennant that year, come back for a second season and find out that all the priorities have changed now that they found fame, and they suck again. And so they got to figure it out again, and it's really funny. There are some great additions to the to the story with guys like Rube, who's the new catcher who can't figure out a way to throw it to the pitcher and things of that nature. It's really funny, so I would recommend that movie. What do you think of that one?
When I came out and saw and visited you this last summer, that's the movie we chose to watch. And the thing about it is it had the exact same feel as the first one, but it was a different movie. And I agree, in some ways, I like it a little bit better. And you didn't really feel out of it with like some of the cast being different, like William Mays Hayes, and it felt comfortable, and it felt like they were going up against the same problems as the first one, but it was different enough, and that it wasn't like repetitive and boring like the second Austin Powers movie. Let's not talk about that. It was a good one. I think that's a very underrated. A lot of people even forget about it, and I think it's it took me a while to even find it on DVD because I like hunting for my DVDs. It's not as fun just to order them on Amazon. So like when I finally found it, it was in I think it was in a package. I'd have to look with all three of them, but it took me forever to find it because no one cares about or forgets about that movie. And I know that's not the list, but I don't think a lot of people appreciate it the same way. But I agree. I think that one's very deserving of the top 7.
Number 5, Hot Rod. Okay, Hot Rod is shaking your head. Hot Rod.
I saw the trailer and I had no interest. I did not want to see that movie. Go ahead.
Did you ever see it?
No, I never saw it. I didn't care.
Okay, good. Okay. Do you like Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes, but Napoleon Dynamite, you have to understand Napoleon Dynamite to get it. I mean, you have to get it to think it's hilarious. And I don't think that's an underappreciated movie. I know that's not what you're saying, but I got that one, and someone had to tell me to watch it and just experience it. I didn't know what it was about. Hot Rod, I saw the trailer. I'm like, this is stupid.
So, Hot Rod is in the same genre of comedy, in my opinion, as Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. It's Andy Samberg, Bill Hader, Danny McBride, and basically Andy Samberg plays Rod Kimball, whose dad passed away when he was young, and all he knew of him was he's a stuntman, so he wants to be a stuntman, only he's not very good at it. And his stepfather, the whole story plays around his stepfather, who always is making fun of him for not being a true man. They're always getting in fights over it. Has a heart condition, and Rod decides that he's going to have one big stunt to raise money for this heart surgery that he needs. And it's a great movie. I highly recommend it. I think you'd really find it very funny. It's a great movie. There's a lot of great parts in it. You should definitely watch it. And I'm sure that other people who are, smart agree with me.
I will highly consider it, and I'm not just saying that.
You are just saying that. Okay. So number 4, Kingpin. Did you ever see Kingpin?
No, the bowling movie?
Yes. You never saw Kingpin?
I never saw Kingpin. I don't know. I just wasn't exposed to it as a kid. Go ahead. Okay. I'm considering listening. Or I'm not considering listening. I am listening and also considering going to watch it. Go ahead.
So Kingpin, Woody Harrelson plays Roy Munson, who is an alcoholic ex-bowling pro, who stumbles across in a local bowling alley Randy Quaid, who plays Ishmael, who is an Amish boy who has an affinity towards bowling, basically, as a bowler. So he decides to come up with a scheme to try to make bowling success with this Amish kid. And if that doesn't spell a recipe for hilarity, I don't know what does. So now this movie is a little raunchy. Okay, so there's a lot of humor in there that it's a little, it's a little vulgar at times, a lot vulgar at times, but still a really funny movie. And then Bill Murray coming in as Big Ern, who's kind of the villain in this whole movie. I don't want to give too much of it away because you're going to go see it and you're going to think, wow, Josh was right. This was a hilarious movie and clearly underrated. That's my number 4, Kingpin.
So before we go into our top 3, we're going to go through really quickly our honorable mentions. Number 1 honorable mention for me was Popeye with Robin Williams. Have you seen this movie? Please say yes.
Yes, I have, and no, it is not underrated in the least.
Wow. Now here's the thing. With Popeye, it's not this movie and it's not the script. It's everything that Robin Williams says under his breath. That you have to watch it listening specifically for those little things. And he has some of the funniest lines that are so in character, that are just so like out of nowhere, that were just totally impromptu. And ad-libbed for that comedic genius. Reconsider watching it, even just for a little while, just to listen to what he says. Condor Man. I'm sure you've never heard of Condor Man.
I'm sure it's terrible, but let's hear about it.
So Condor Man is a movie. This came out in '81, I think. Condor Man is about a cartoonist who has a friend that works in the FBI, and he gets or the cartoonist has this superhero that he's come up with named Condor Man, and he has this big tights, a suit of tights, and it has these big wings that he does. The character in the cartoon strip does all that, but he ends up involved in this big, huge FBI case where he becomes Condor Man. And so I'm going to say it's just hilarious, has some really hokey, hilarious effects, but it's really funny. It was really hard not to put this on the list, but the reason I didn't is because I don't think it's underrated. It's also rated R, but a lot of people are huge fans of it, and that is My Cousin Vinny.
That's a great one. That's a classic movie. I agree. It's a movie that I saw a long, long time ago. And as somebody who's been through law school and been in the law, it's one of the funniest movies about the profession. Like, really, it's great.
Joe Pesci's some of his greatest work in that, and I'm pretty sure Marissa Tomei got an Academy Award for that, if I remember.
She might have won, but I know she was nominated as the best supporting actress.
Yeah, so I mean, fantastic, and the cast, the judge, everyone in it. Ralph Macchio, even. I mean, I'm not a bit. I mean, it was kind of nostalgia for me to see him after the Karate Kid, but not as a Karate Kid. I was a little disappointed. I mean, I was young. But my top three. Number 3, Noises Off.
I've heard of it, never seen it.
You need to watch it. Noises Off is a movie of a cast of characters putting on a play, and it's actually a play. I've actually seen this production live.
I think I've seen the play.
Really?
I think
so. You need to watch the movie. It has Carol Burnett, Michael Caine, John Ritter, Christopher Reeves. It's just a fantastic movie of this tight cast of characters and just all these interesting, hilarious things. Some of the funniest timing of any comedic performance ever. And seeing it live in a play is fantastic. If anyone ever has a chance to go see Noises Off on stage, go see it. But the movie is fantastic, and everyone I've shown that movie to, I don't have a copy because I lent it out and I never get it back. But they all say, "How have I never heard of this movie?" But it's one of the best. Number 2, Oscar. Everyone forgets and no one appreciates how hilarious Oscar is with Sylvester Stallone. One of the funniest movies, I think one of his best performances, and he's saying that as a huge Rocky fan just like you. I can't describe the plot and everything that happens in another Marissa Tomei movie, but it's phenomenal. And starring in that also, partially stealing the show is Tim Curry. He plays the Dr. Poole. Hilarious. And that's just, a lot of people have seen it and a lot of people just kind of forgot about it. And I think everyone should go back and revisit Oscar and really pay attention because it's one of the best, funniest, and fastest movies ever. And my number 1 was Clue, also with Tim Curry. The reason I think it's underrated, most people that have seen it, it has this kind of a cult following, but I think the problem is not many people are even aware of it. And that's different than having forgotten it. A lot of people don't even know it exists. But the live action movie of Clue, one of the best casts ever, but Tim Curry, funniest parts in it, but some of the best dialogue, the best slapstick, just some of the funniest timing and dialogue and delivery, awesome twists at the end, like just everything about this movie was just perfect. That's one of my family favorite movies that we could always watch all the time. It's one of the best movies that has ever been made. And I love Tim Curry. And that's when I, as a kid, fell in love with him from that movie. But that would possibly be on my desert island list as well, and that's saying a lot.
Okay, so I like Clue. I don't know if I'd put it as number 1 overrated movie of all time, but it's, I agree. It's a good movie. Okay, so first, my honorable mentions. Okay, I got a few of them here. 1, Brewster's Millions. You ever seen that?
Yes, that's a good one. It's not laughter to laughter the whole time. It's kind of uneven as far as that goes, but it's really good.
So I like that movie specifically because it's kind of the same thing you're saying with Clue. Not a lot of people have even seen it. It's a movie with Richard Pryor and John Candy. They're AA baseball players, and Richard Pryor suddenly realizes he has a rich oil tycoon uncle who passed away and offers him $300 million. But the catch is he has to spend $30 million in 30 days with no assets. And so the next 30 days is him trying to spend this money in order for him to be able to get the pot of 300 million. And he's not allowed to tell anybody about it. One of those movies where you could put yourself in that place and see how he could do the things that he did. So I like that movie. Next one, and I didn't do it strictly because I have another Mike Myers movie in it, but I think Wayne's World is highly underrated. I love Wayne's World. I love the skits from SNL. Dana Carvey and Mike Myers are great in that movie. Wayne's World 2 was kind of but the original Wayne's World I thought was a great movie. So I tried desperately to not have any R-rated movies at all on my lists. Okay, I used to before my mission. I would watch R-rated movies. When I went on my mission, I made a determination personally, and I'm not saying judging anybody who does, but I'm just saying I made a personal decision not to watch R-rated movies, with very rare exceptions that we'll save for another episode. But History of the World Part 1. Have you ever?
Absolutely.
Mel Brooks movie has got to be. I don't think I've laughed harder than some of the scenes I remember. I don't really want to go over the plot in detail because it kind of goes into segments, but it's basically Mel Brooks's version of cavemen and Roman times and different times, the French Revolution. And it's just a great movie. Highly recommend it, even though I don't recommend it because it's R-rated and, it probably wouldn't be funny on TV. So
that's one that it's a little raunchy and racy in some parts, but it's got some hilarious moments.
A little raunchy is probably an understatement. So my top 3 movies. Sewing Murder and Axe Murder is number 3. So this is a movie where Mike Myers plays a poet from San Francisco, and he has commitment issues, and those issues result in him kind of finding silly reasons to break up with women. And he meets Harriet, who is a butcher in San Francisco, falls for her, and then he thinks that maybe she might be an axe murderer. And so the rest of the movie kind of goes with, is she or is she not an axe murderer? Great movie. I don't think it's another one of those movies that it's kind of subtle humor. I highly recommend the movie if you haven't seen it. I think it's a great one.
It's really good, and it's got a fun story, and it's good side characters as well. It's really well rounded. I agree with that.
Now, number 2, Dodgeball. You seen Dodgeball?
Of course, I've seen Dodgeball.
This is why I put this as underrated, because I feel like this could make my top 10 all-time comedies. Ben Stiller plays the owner of a big 24-hour fitness type health club. Meanwhile, Vince Vaughn has this kind of rinky-dink club where a bunch of guys who are kind of loser-ish called Average Joes, they all go there. So they decide to join a dodgeball competition in order to try to save the gym. And it's a great movie. They have some great cameos from, Lance Armstrong, before he got busted for steroids, so it made it even better. And there's just a lot of great humor in that movie. Highly recommend it.
I just don't think it's underrated. I think a lot of people love that movie.
I put it in there because I feel like this is one that should be considered for top 10. Great movie. I'm sure everybody loves it who's seen it. I'm surprised how many people haven't seen it. Great movie. And then my top one, and I'm always surprised that people don't give this more credence, is the movie Dirty Work. Have you seen the movie Dirty Work?
I tried to. I could not finish it. I got so bored.
Oh, you've got to be joking.
I was young. I would have to try it again now that I'm a little older and I kind of get things, but I didn't finish it.
Okay, so Norm Macdonald and Artie Lang. There's a cameo by Chevy Chase in the movie as well. They play two best friends who kind of really don't have any good jobs or anything like that, and they decide to open a business where what they do is basically pull pranks on people for people who are being bullied. And so also it's got the guy who plays Shooter McGavin, I can't remember his name, but the guy who plays Shooter McGavin's also in it and is the main villain in the movie. So a little raunchy at times, a lot raunchy at times, but generally a really funny movie. One of my favorites. I love watching it. I quote it all the time. That's my number one underrated comedy.
All right. Well, there you have it. My number one was Clue. Josh's number one is Dirty Work. I haven't seen it, but I'll have to watch it. My number one challenge for you is to watch either Disorganized Crime or Zorro the Gay Blade, and I will watch Dirty Work. There you have our complete and total and perfect list of the top 7 underrated comedy. Do you have anything else you want to add, Josh?
Feel free to, if you've changed your mind or you want to post your top 5, 7 list or whatever, post it in the comments and subscribe to the channel. This is the first of many videos. So
You're not talking to me, right? Because I'm not changing my list. Are you challenging me to look at your
nope.
videos and then? I'm kidding. I know. I'm kidding. All right.
All right.
Well, I am Tim Wilde.
Josh Edlow.
And we were Saints on Cinema. Thanks for watching.